Okay. All right. Looks like we are live. So, welcome everybody to this very special combined federal campaign event. My name is James Kernan, and I'll be your host for today's event. I'm joined with a good friend and colleague from McGuire, Mr. Mike May. Mike will speak about the CFC and our organization's role in the campaign. We're also blessed to be joined with former Nebraska Cornhuskers and Hall of Fame football coach, Mr. Tom Osborne. Coach Osborne will speak today about the power of giving back. Lastly, we'll have two of our valued charities in the campaign sharing more about their organizations, Ms. Shannon Bledsoe and Meredith Hill. Thanks for joining us. And so we anticipate today's event to last for about 75 to 80 minutes, and then including a live Q&A with Coach Osborne. But before we get started, some quick housekeeping. Everyone is muted. So questions that you have, please type them in the question box in the Zoom control panel, and we'll do our best to answer any and all of your questions. So we also have a quick announcement from our LFCC Vice Chair and one of our leaders in the CFC and Heart of the Midlands campaign for the past 10 years, Mr. Terry Morgan, regarding today's raffle. Hey, Terry, you want to go ahead?
Yes, good morning. I appreciate everybody attending this event. This is one of the first events, virtual events that we're having in our zone, Heart of the Midlands. So this will kind of gear and also allow us to convince other agencies to participate in the virtual charity fair. What we're doing as part of this presentation, we're doing a scavenger hunt. And so what it is for each presenter, you need to jot down something about what they're wearing. And then also you need to jot down one item that you see in the background. Mm-hmm. And then once you've done that, we'll put my email address in the chat box. I need you to go ahead and email that to me, and you'll be put in for a raffle for a food card to either a national chain restaurant or a local chain restaurant, depending on where you're calling in from. So I will go ahead and chat my in the chat box. I'll go ahead and put my email address. And again, thank you so much for attending. You are one of the main reasons that we're so successful in the CFC. Mm-hmm. And if you follow us on Facebook, you'll see my $1 10 minutes or my $1 or $2. A pay period makes a difference, and it does. Just your participation supports these charities so much, and you'll find out later on in the presentation what your pledge could actually go to as far as the different programs that the charities offer. So I will turn it back over to James, and I greatly appreciate everybody.
Great, thanks, Terry. Appreciate you hosting the event and helping put this together for everybody in our zone. So let me first hand things off to Mr. Mike May to share a little bit more about the CFC.
Thank you, James. Thank you, everybody. Welcome. It's an honor to be on a call with Coach Osborne. Went to high school in Nebraska, played football with James at Nebraska Wesleyan, and true honor to be on this call with him. The Combined Federal Campaign is a 60-year federal employee institution, tradition. It has raised $8.4 billion in support of charities over those 60 years. It is the single way that nonprofits can engage with federal employees throughout the year and present to them the value of what they do. You know, one of the things that we did this year in working with James was we acknowledged, and I've been doing the Combined Federal Campaign for 30 years, and started in 1989, 1990 in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I've seen this take place. I've worked with charities and federal employees for those 30 years. And one of the things that we focused on this year, and I think probably a lot of the attendees were able to attend this training, but James put together, our whole team put together the Emerging Leaders Civic Advancement Program this year, where federal employees that were CFC volunteers, because remember, Combined Federal Campaign is federal employees soliciting contributions, philanthropy, giving from each other. It's that rare institution where federal employees go to each other, and we're not talking about professional fundraisers. We're talking about your colleagues that come to you and say, hey, this is what I care about. This is who I give to. And I hope you'll consider giving to one of these worthy charities this year. And one of the things that we did, and James rolled it out as a tremendous success this year, was we had the ECLA program. And the ECLA program focused on three things. And I think it couldn't be more important right now to focus on these three things. It's leading change, leading people, and building coalitions. And if you think about what the combined federal campaign is right now, when you think about what I was talking to Meredith and Shannon, two new charities in the campaign for the last 2 years, and their opportunity to connect with federal employees, not just from where they're headquartered, but from across the country. It's a wonderful opportunity, but my gosh, we've had a lot of change this year, and navigating that change for federal employees and for charities is something that our ECLA program that James led did. And then it talked about leading change and leading people and building collaboration. One of the things that federal employees and charities have in common is their public service. Federal employees are career public servants, and charities have to be public benefit nonprofit organizations to get their 501c3 status. So bringing those two together through the combined federal campaign, and then working with federal employees to understand the nexus that goes on between federal employees and charities during this time of year, is something that James did, we did. It was tremendous success. And I just want to acknowledge the opportunities that we all have, the charities and federal employees, to be the face of change this year, to understand the challenges that we have, that we face, communities, countries, our world, and we navigate those together. We navigate those public servants, public benefit nonprofits, and we do that through the combined federal campaign by everybody finding a cause that they believe in, that they want to support, and contributing to it year round. Like Terry said, it could be $1, it could be $5, whatever you have goes a long way through the combined federal campaign. So James, thank you very much. For everybody, I'll be manning the chat box as much as James will let me. He gets kind of territorial in there. So I'm gonna try to manage that. But if you have any questions for me, for the campaign, and for Terry, just shoot them off. So thank you, James. Thank you, Coach, for joining us. And any questions, I'm happy to answer them in the chat box.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate the kind words and the introduction to the CFC for some of you that may not know about the campaign and its rich 60-year history. So without further ado, it's my great pleasure of introducing our featured speaker. He's a Hall of Fame and 3-time national champion football coach, Mr. Thomas Osborne. Today, Coach Osborne is retired, but still involved in many causes, including a nonprofit called Teammates that he and his wife founded. So Mr. Osborne, it's a great honor. Let me hand the floor off to you, sir.
Thank you, James, and thanks so many of you for tuning in. And many times things aren't quite as they seem. And this fact was driven home to me not long ago. I had a friend in Omaha, Nebraska, who'd been out of work for a while, and he'd looked for a job everywhere, couldn't find one. And one day he was driving by the zoo there in Omaha. They have a very large, very well-known zoo. And he saw a sign that said, help wanted. So went inside and inquired about the job. And the director of the zoo interviewed him, and he said, well, we're kind of embarrassed, but our gorilla died. And you can't be a first-class zoo without a gorilla. But he said, we do have this, and we've looked everywhere, all around the world, we can't find one available. But we do have this gorilla suit. And that's the job. Somebody's going to have to dress up in a suit and pretend to be a gorilla. Well, the guy wasn't real excited about it, but he needed work, so he took the suit home, practiced a little bit, went to work every day. Nobody seemed to have any idea it wasn't a real gorilla, but then he got a little bored because, you know, you can only do so many things as a gorilla in the zoo. And he had this idea, and he went into the director of the zoo and he said, how would it be if we built this big trapeze? And I could swing back over all the other animals' cages and kind of spice up my act. And much to his surprise, the director of the zoo said, yeah, he said, I think that'd be a good idea. So they built this huge trapeze and he was swinging back and forth, drawing some really big crowds. Everything was going well. And then one day a tragedy happened. The swing broke, right? And he fell right on his head in the lion's cage. It was not cold. And when he came to, the lion was standing over him on all fours looking down at him. Of course, he forgot all about being a gorilla, began hollering for help. He said, help, help, somebody save me. And the lion looked down at him and he said, shut up, stupid, or you're going to ruin this for everybody. So sometimes things really aren't as they seem. And I think in our country today, you know, it's kind of interesting as I look around, people are always seeking to amass wealth, sometimes power, sometimes influence. And the idea being that this will make their life good. And it certainly makes it easier sometimes. And it can lead to certain availability of pleasures and things. But it doesn't necessarily make for a good life. And because a good life is one with significance and purpose and meaning. And so I'll tell you a story about my own existence, and probably the most memorable day in my life, early on at least, was December 7th, 1941. And that may resonate with many of you because that was the day that Pearl Harbor was bombed, and I was sitting in my grandparents' living room with my dad. And I don't remember a whole lot about the word coming over the radio about Pearl Harbor. I remember my dad's reaction. He jumped out of his chair and he was very animated and he said, I'm going to get into this thing. And so he did. And he was 36 years old at the time. He was beyond draft age. He had a wife and 2 kids. So he didn't have to go, but he was sort of a patriotic type. And so he joined up and was gone for 5 years. And I remember going to school, and I was 4 at the time he joined, and most of my early schooling was in this little town in Nebraska, living with my grandparents. My mother was working at an ammunition depot, and it was a very troubled time. And I remember how insignificant I felt because all the other kids in my class had dads, and they had dads at home. And so I was pretty much fatherless during that period of time. So fortunately, my dad survived the war, came home, and when he came back, I knew that he liked athletics, and I really wanted to please him. And so, in trying to please my dad, I played them all. Played baseball in the summer, football in the fall, basketball in the winter, ran track in the spring, and had some success at it. And so I eventually went to college, had a chance to go to the University of Nebraska and play football. And the football coach said, well, if you go, you can't play basketball. And the basketball coach gave me a scholarship, and he said, well, if you play basketball, you can't play football. So I went to a small college. And so during my summer, between my sophomore and junior year, I went to a summer camp. And during that camp, it was a FCA camp, I came across a verse of scripture, and it went like this: if anyone would save his life, he will lose it. And I puzzled about that because I think what it meant was that the more you grasp life to yourself, the more it's about you, the more you try to accumulate things to serve yourself, it's going to lead to a dead end. Not going to take you where you think it's going to go. And then the other half of the verse scripture was, anyone who loses his life for my sake, he will find it. And so I thought about that, and at that time I decided that that was the path I was going to go. So I went into coaching and got the head job at Nebraska, and there's different styles of leadership. One is called laissez-faire. It's a French word meaning hands off.
Mhm.
So I guess that means that when a tough situation comes up, you try to duck the responsibility. You take a poll, you appoint a committee on Saturday afternoon. A tough decision, you let your offensive coordinator make the decision, or your defensive coordinator, and then you second guess them the next day. And so I didn't think that was very good. But the traditional style of leadership in most coaching situations is something we call transactional leadership. Transactional leadership is based on reward and punishment. You know, if you work a little harder in the weight room, you're a little stronger, a little faster, we'll promote you from the third team to the second team, or from the second team to the first team. Or if you do a good job on this project, we'll give you a raise. Or if you do well here, we'll give you a promotion. But then if you're late, we're going to dock your pay. If you're late again, we may have to let you go. So it's reward and punishment. And most everybody has grown up under that style of leadership. And you've experienced that in the world of coaching, certainly, if you've been in a sport. And the problem is that it's pretty much top down. And probably the primary emotion in that style of leadership tends to be fear of failure, fear of not pleasing the boss. And it can get results, but it doesn't necessarily lead to less collateral damage. Sometimes it can be pretty damaging. And so the style of leadership that I chose, and sometimes I was better at it than others, is something called transformational leadership. And transformational leadership is essentially servant leadership, which means that the leader is the servant of all. And so it's based on principle and values that will not be transgressed. The leader leads by example. It's not do as I say, just do as I do. If it's crunch time and you're going to have to work 50, 60-hour weeks, the leader better work 60 or 70-hour weeks. And if a sacrifice has to be made, the leader does it. And the dominant emotion in this type of leadership generally tends to be that of love, mutual affection, mutual respect. And it's a style of leadership that will get a group further, faster than any other style of leadership. But it's harder because it puts a little bit more pressure on the leader. And so that's the way we try to do it. And so I think that eventually became important, because as I look back and as I hear from players from time to time, I hear from somebody almost every day, I think there was a strong bond that was formed in that style of leadership. And so that led to the formation of teammates, because over 36 years of coaching, I noticed some significant changes. Back in the early 60s, when we went out to recruit, we almost always found a young man who lived under the same roof with both biological parents. As time went on, that began to change. Sometimes we'd have to go to 2 different cities because the mom lived in one city and the dad in another in order to recruit a player. Sometimes, as time went on, you just had to see the mom because there wasn't any dad around. And so today, over half of our kids are growing up without both biological parents. 26 million are fatherless. We have 9 million kids, according to a survey, that have no adult in their life they feel they can turn to in a crisis, that cares about them, loves them unconditionally. So we started Teammates, which is a mentoring program. Started with 22 football players mentoring 7th and 8th grade boys in Lincoln Public Schools. And that's kind of where we thought it would end, but it grew. And currently we're mentoring 11,000 kids, 175 school districts in 5 states. And so it has changed. And the thing that was kind of significant is that I heard time and time again from mentors saying, you know, I think I get more out of this than my mentee does. And I puzzled about that, thought about it, did some investigation, because they were giving their time, they were not getting paid, they were not receiving anything of monetary value. But I think what they were saying is that it adds a dimension of meaning and purpose to my life. Because when you do something for somebody who cannot do anything for you in return, at least on the face of it, it seems to add purpose and meaning and significance to your life. And so I think that's the thing that sometimes we're missing in our culture today. And I'll end with this story here. There's a guy named Alexis de Tocqueville, who was a Frenchman, and he was living in Europe back in the 1820s. And there's a lot of interest in Europe in this dynamic young country, America. So he came over, he spent 4 or 5 years traveling the states that were in existence at that time. He studied America, and he wrote 2 volumes called Democracy in America. And as he summed it up, he said this, he said, I look for America's greatness in her harbors and didn't find it there. I looked for it in her vast fields and her forests and didn't find it there. I looked for it in her commerce, in her worldwide trade, and didn't find it there. It wasn't until I went into her churches and heard her pulpits ablaze with righteousness that I discovered the true greatness of America. And then he went on to say this, he said, America is great because America is good. But if America ever ceases to be good, it will cease to be great. So I think that's kind of the struggle we're looking at today, because the true genius and greatness of America has been in our willingness to serve other people. We are the most generous nation in the world by far. If you look at other nations, you don't see the philanthropy, you don't see the generosity, the willingness to serve. But at the same time, we're seeing some dents in this. We're seeing some people grasping more and more to themselves. And so, as I see it, the key to living a really successful life is to get beyond yourself in some way, and to truly serve and be somebody who's a person for others as much as you can be. So with that, I'll end, and if there's any questions anybody has, I'll be glad to try to answer. I'm retired now, so I don't have any great position of influence. I used to be in Congress. Sometimes I'm not, I don't admit it, because it's not a very popular profession right now. So anyway, if anybody has any questions, I'm glad to answer them.
All right, you bet. So we'll open things up for questions. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and type them in either the message box or the chat box in Zoom, and we'll try to go through those. Coach, I've got a question for you. You know, you talked about the importance of servant leadership and transformational leadership. Where do you think you learned that? Was it in school? Was it from your father? Was it from your upbringing, or did it just happen during coaching? Where do you think you learned that?
Well, I think it was primarily, I related that verse scripture, and I think that was something that impacted me greatly during that particular time during my college years, that really serving yourself is very tempting, and But, at the end of your life, and I'm getting closer to that, I'm 83 now, and I've come to realize more and more that the things that really count are not how much you have in your bank account, how big a house you live in, what kind of position you held, how many trophies you got in your trophy case. Those things all fade and they go away. The things that are important are relationships. Your family is important. And I think to some degree, what you've contributed with your life, we all get one shot at it. There are no do-overs in life. And so you better make it count. And the thing that counts the most, I think, really is how much of service you've been to other people in the long run.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. So a couple questions. Is a leader born a leader, or is it developed over time?
Well, I think it's probably a little bit of both. Some people have exceptional speaking ability or maybe certain physical qualities that lead to a certain amount of charisma.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think, there's a guy named Wilberforce who was lived in England back during the days of slavery. And he was a very small person physically. And someone said that about Wilberforce, he stood up on a stage or a table and he looked like a shrimp. But as he spoke, he assumed the nature of a whale. His words were so forceful.
Mm-hmm.
So he was committed to a cause. And he, more than anyone in England, brought slavery to an end. And so I think that sometimes if you're allied or imbued with a cause, a purpose in your life, it does. You may not be physically gifted. You may not have some of the attributes of great leaders, but you can really make a difference, I think, if it's something that's really important to you and it's aligned with a good mission.
Okay, great. All right,
James, I have a question, if you don't mind,
Yep,
for Coach. It occurs to me, Coach Osborne, you were talking about the mentors and the mentees, and the mentors getting more out of it than the mentees. That sounds like the definition of transformational leadership. They were giving so much to the mentees that they were getting so much back. But with transformational leadership, it's not transactional, it's not laissez-faire. During a time of change, when you're using that servant leadership mentality, how do you navigate that? You're talking about the change in household develop, how they were arranged as you were going through recruiting kids. When you're going through a time of change, which we're all grappling with right now, how do transformational leaders help us all navigate those difficult times of change?
Well, I think probably the key attribute of the transformational leader is that he puts followers, those who he's working with, at the center, and he's willing to serve them. And I think that when people know that you love them and you care about them, that they will respond. Now, we had really tough practices at Nebraska. We asked a lot of our players, but I think they knew that we cared about them and that we were not going to ask them to do anything that wasn't in their best interest. We were not trying to manipulate them for our purposes as coaches. This wasn't just about trying to win some games. We were trying to do what we felt was in their best interest. So then in the fourth quarter, when crunch time was on, they were able to perform. And so the things we put them through were really to make them better players, better people. And I think if people understand that you're on their side, you're not using them, you're not manipulating them, and that you're there to serve them and to make their life better, I think that's very powerful. This last weekend had Bill Murray here in Omaha, actually, for a fundraiser. And Bill, as you may know, was in Ghostbusters and several famous movies. And Bill struck me as a guy who was really there to serve. Anything that we asked him to do, or anything that he thought we might want, he did it. He didn't get paid. He didn't come. He didn't get any money for coming. He came to serve, and he made a tremendous impact on all the people that I think interacted with him. And so I saw in Bill an example of servant leadership.
All right.
Thank you.
There was a comment from Craig Dirksen just mentioning, great job, coach. I should also point out to everyone that Mr. Osborne was a Nebraska congressman in the mid 2000s after his great coaching career. So good point, Craig, and thank you for that, coach. Appreciated you giving back to the state of Nebraska as well that way. So we still got some time. Any other questions? I saw a couple people put their hands up, but if you would, just go ahead and type in your questions in either the chat box or the question box, and we're happy to read them off for you. Meredith, Shannon, any questions for a famous coach here? Not yet. I think Coach did a perfect segue explaining his father coming home from serving our country, back to your charity. So we'll call on you here shortly. All right. Let's give it another second. Okay, another question came in from Katie. Does it look like there's light at the end of the tunnel for our current football program? I knew we were going to get some football questions in there. Sorry, Coach.
Yeah, that's probably a Nebraska fan. Well,
yeah, yep.
Yeah, the good thing is that the Scott Frost is having to change the culture, and that's kind of like turning a battleship. It's not something that happens in a few days or a few weeks.
Right.
It takes probably 3-4 years. He's got a lot of young players who are really starting to come on, particularly on defense, and they have been making a few mistakes at critical times, but it's been a weird season.
Mm-hmm.
No spring football. You start playing your first game in November, and normally you play late August, early September, and so it's been very strange. But I think that when you look at the young players they have and the coaching staff, it'll get better. In probably another year or so, will be really good.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
So any other questions? I know I've got several. So one thing I'll just share with everybody, I actually grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, and went to a high school with Coach Osborne's son, Mike. And Mike was a very talented athlete, just like his father, and was our starting quarterback, it seemed like, from 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, all through high school. So got to be friends with Mike, and remember during that time frame going to some FCA events down in Coach Osborne's basement, in their basement. So little trivia there for everybody. But certainly enjoyed growing up in the Midwest, and I appreciate everything that Coach Osborne has done for not just the football fans, but for the entire state of Nebraska. And just really warmed my heart when I heard, kind of just seemed like as the more and more as times changed about the broken families and the lack of parenting, maybe, Coach kind of stepped in that role. And I always appreciated that about him. And I know a lot of players that played for Coach Osborne, and what they would always tell me is Coach was more than a coach. He was a father figure and also a leader. And it's one of the things I've always again appreciated about Coach Osborne is he's a great man, not just a great coach. So still have some time for any other questions that anyone has before we introduce the next speakers. Okay. All right. Well, Coach, you're welcome to stick around for a little bit more. We've got a couple other speakers to call on. And so thank you for being with us. Again, it's an honor to have you here, and we're grateful. So thank you.
Thank you, James.
You bet. Okay, so let's move on to our next speaker, Shannon. Why don't I hand the floor off to you, and please tell us a little bit more about WCG Cares and about your organization.
Thank you, James. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Mr. Osborne. I was really inspired by your comments about the importance of serving others and how it contributes to a meaningful life. My name is Shannon Bledsoe, and I'm the Executive Director for WCG Cares. We are an international nonprofit organization that's based in San Diego, California, and we work in low and middle income countries around the world. Our mission is to enable women to access the information and the technologies that they need to make informed choices about their health. And we do that by partnering with women and with families, with ministries of health around the world, and other locally based nonprofit organizations to introduce new and improved methods for reproductive health and for HIV prevention. We work in some very difficult places, like Niger in West Africa, where health infrastructure is extremely limited. It can be difficult for people to get the care that they need anyway in the best of times, and that has been made more challenging now with the pandemic. If you can see the photos in my background, these are pictures of pharmacies and health centers from some of the places that we work, just to give you an idea of context. And there are a lot of really committed and skilled providers in these settings, but the reality is that the most effective and innovative technologies often aren't available to them and to the people that they serve. And we think that people should have those technologies no matter where they live. Because of the pandemic, a lot of health clinics have shut down or reduced their hours in countries where people already don't have enough access to healthcare providers or to essential medicines and equipment. The lockdowns and the border closures that have been implemented to stop COVID-19 in a lot of places are impacting both the production of medicines at the manufacturer level in places like India, as well as their distribution. So getting the medicines in through customs, that also has been closed a lot lately, and then being able to get those medicines and products out to the people that need them. And in some cases, this is reversing huge gains that we've made in global health over the past 20 years. So one of the things that we try to do is to ensure that innovative and effective health technologies and services continue to be made available to people. And that includes self-care products that don't require people to visit a provider, so that those needs can be met at home. One example of a health problem that is at risk of worsening during the course of the pandemic is HIV. HIV isn't in the headlines much lately, and so it's easy to forget that it continues to affect millions of people around the world. More than 75 million people worldwide have become infected with HIV since the start of the epidemic, including about 2 million people who became newly infected last year. So it's a significant problem. When supply chains are broken, like they have been in some cases, and people can't get the prevention or the treatment that they need, it means a lot more preventable death, stigma and isolation for people that are dealing with an HIV diagnosis. There is a lot of hardship on families as people lose sources of income, jobs, and family members pass away. and higher rates of infection among people, including children. So it's really important that we continue to make the most effective technologies available to give people choices about how to protect themselves if they choose to do so. One of the things that we are working on in South Africa is an innovative dual prevention pill that would help to prevent HIV and would give people a new method of protection. So we're excited about the potential impact of that. This is our first year with the CFC, and we're so happy to be part of it. We're really grateful for your support, and I encourage any of you to give to any of the causes that's important to you, and to know that truly your contribution is making a difference to the people in this country and around the world. And I'd like to thank the CFC for giving us the chance to be part of the campaign and to be part of this great event here today. If you'd like more information about WCG, please check out our website. We are at wcgcares.org, and our CFC number is 45790.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Shannon. Appreciated you sharing and telling more about your organization. And again, for all the listeners, it's really important. All of the CFC charities have a 5-digit code, and Shannon just shared hers. If you would, go ahead and type it also out in the chat box for everybody to see, and put your contact info up there if you want. But that's important because you need to designate a pledge to a specific charity when you do give. So you need that 5-digit number as well. So great. All right. Well, why don't we hand the floor off to Meredith? Meredith, go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Meredith Hill, and I'm with Operation Finally Home. Thank you to CFC for hosting us today, and great work, Shannon. You and your team seem to be doing a lot of cool things. Just want to wish happy Veterans Day to all the veterans that are joining us today, and happy 245th birthday to the U.S. Marines. A little bit about Operation Finally Home. We were founded in 2005 in Houston, Texas by Dan Walrath. He is a custom home builder. Our mission is to provide custom and mortgage-free homes and home modifications to the wounded, ill, and injured veterans and their families. We've also started working with quite a bit first responders. And so just trying to serve as many people as we can. We currently have 290 projects completed or in planning in 30 states across the country. So that includes our mortgage-free homes and our home modifications. A little bit about our home modification program. We were called into action to start this program after Hurricane Harvey hit Texas. And basically, we're just working with veterans to try and improve their homes and make the modifications they need. We work with a lot of older veterans who can't necessarily fix their bathrooms or make them wheelchair accessible. That's just a little bit about that project or projects. Our mortgage-free homes, basically, we custom build them. We partner with a local builder in the area we're building a home, and then we work with them to identify the needs of the veterans, and from there just customize each home. So if a veteran needs wider doorways or lower countertops, we work with the builder to get all of that done for the veterans. A little bit about our program objectives. We hope to try and complete 15 to 20 mortgage-free homes a year and 10 modifications a year. We're very blessed that the pandemic hasn't slowed us down. We've been able to keep going and keep operating at full force. So we've been lucky to keep our projects moving. We're also working to increase women and minority recruitment by 25% a year, and just overall trying to increase our scope across the US. I think that basically covers what we're able to do. We're really proud of our process because we're able to fund the majority of our home through the builder. but there is a funding gap with each home that we have to raise on our end. So y'all's donation through the CFC can help us, finish putting the windows in or finish putting in tile floors for each of these veterans. I think our process is really streamlined, but we do use every single dollar we get. So anything you guys are willing to commit to Operation Finally Home, we'd be grateful for. Our CFC number is 20331.
Wonderful. All right, what a great cause. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Meredith. And James, I was just thinking back to what Coach Osborne talked about and a little bit back on the transformational leadership and, that idea of mentors feeling fulfillment more than, they were getting more than they were giving to the mentees. And we talked to a lot of people that make contributions to the volunteers, from the campaign coordinators to Terry and the LFCC, to the donors. And one of the things that to a person that you hear is the gift of giving is just that act, is providing either volunteer time, providing obviously volunteer time in the campaign, or making a donation. And that really goes back to that transformational leader, by making a gift, leading your office, leading the LFCC. And the campaign is full of those, supporting these charities, these wonderful charities, both of them doing such important work. But that really is what Coach Osborne was talking about. And that's the real kind of unspoken about part of the CFC, the act of giving, the act of volunteering, the act of serving others through the combined federal campaign is the real gift that you're giving to your community, but you really get back more than you give.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And it sounds funny, especially coming into, Christmas, right? That it's actually better to give than to receive. And sometimes it depends on the present, right? But all the time, I think, Mike, you hit it spot on, where it's better to give than to receive, and to see and feel the human element of being able to give back. To me, there's nothing like it. So, so great job, Meredith. If you would go ahead and drop your 5-digit code up there in chat. And we're going to do a final Q&A in about 5 minutes here, but I've got a few questions for everybody. And so let me walk through a couple of those real quick. So please stick around with us, because we're going to announce the raffle winner at the end of the call. And then we'll open things up. Any campaign questions you have, any questions of any of us, we're going to have a live Q&A. So please stick around for that. So I just want to ask everybody, why give through the CFC, and why give in general? What's your why? And I remember early in this campaign season, McGuire, our team all got together virtually, and we were talking about what's our why, and we talked about the importance of maybe sharing your why. So it's a great way, maybe as a CFC volunteer, to Mike's handing up the book exercise that we all worked on together. But it's a great read. I encourage you to check it out. But it personalizes the ask. And for me, I look back at why am I involved in the campaign? And I grew up in Nebraska. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, so everybody got to beat me up until I got big enough to defend myself. But my family was always very, very close. I loved my brothers and my sister. I had two older brothers, or actually 3 older brothers, but the 2 boys, my sister's in the middle, then a brother, and then there was a 5-year gap, and then there was me. And my father claims that I was the only planned one, but I'm not sure I believe it. But anyway, my whole point is I love my family very much, and was always very close to them. And we grew up in Nebraska, great culture, great place to raise kids. And shortly after I graduated from school and everybody kind of moved different directions, I moved out to California. My father came down with cancer, and didn't know how severe it was. It was right around 9/11. And I remember, because when 9/11 happened, I think that was early that next week. It was like a Monday. I was at the doctor's office with my father, and they had found, stage 4 cancer that weekend during surgery. So they gave him 6 months to live, and found it kind of hard to believe. He was speaking like everything was normal, and he went very quickly. We lost him in less than 3 months. And then shortly thereafter, my mother contracted lung cancer, and we got a little bit of time with mom before she passed away. So cancer is a great cause that's near and dear. Cancer research is a cause that's near and dear to my heart, because I lost both my folks to that, and think about them every day. And then my sister, who I care greatly about, she has diabetes. So diabetes and diabetes education and fighting diabetes, that type of research is my why. So I want to encourage all of you to think about what your why is. We all have stories. Coach Osborne talked about, it's not how big your house is or how big your bank account is. And sure, we've all had lots of things that we could be proud of and thankful for. But to me, the real things are family. And it's about giving back and leaving your legacy. And today there's an opportunity for you to do that through the CFC. And for the federal employees, the retirees, and contractors like myself, you can give. And there's you can do one-time donations. You can do write a check, a debit card, credit card, or for the federal employees, you could do payroll deduction. And spreading out your gift over a year, it's automatic. It makes it super easy at tax time. And you can do a variety of different causes and help them throughout the year. And I think Terry Morgan said it best, but just $1 a pay period. If everybody in our zone, every employee in our zone just did $1 a pay period, we would double what we had contributed last year into the campaign, and we would destroy our goal. We would have a super successful campaign. So I encourage you to think about giving and donating. But there's a lot of great charities out there. There's over 6,000 choices. There's something for everybody. You just kind of what your story is, what your cause is. There's lots of charities that map directly to that. So I encourage you to check out the different charities. We had two of them speak today, and we're grateful for that. So
James, we talk sometimes about why give through the CFC and why not give directly to charities, and it's a question that comes up. And there's also a great point Stephanie Mercer makes in the chat, talking about how busy we are. Everybody's so busy right now, and that's a reality. Even though some of us are, working from home, we have parents teaching from home. We have a lot of challenges that we're all addressing. And so giving through the CFC is a way for you to actively give to support charities that you don't have time to actually volunteer at or support in other ways. But we know that giving directly to a charity is a wonderful thing. But for charities in the combined federal campaign, the combined part of the campaign, the gift that is not a $35 gift that goes directly to the charity through the website, but is a $3,500 gift or a $5,000 gift because you're combining it with all your other colleagues in Nebraska and throughout the country, is something that allows Operation Finally Home and WCG Cares to make real program planning and benefits throughout the year. And so that's the difference. It's crowdfunding through the federal workforce that allows the charities that participate to get a report at the end of the campaign season and say, oh my gosh, I didn't get $35 in March. I got, $12,000 from federal employees across the country. And now I can plan on, putting in the finishing windows on this house or these houses, or providing, family planning kits to these villages. it's not as easy to do with a $35 gift. So one of the things that we know about the value to the charities and the value to the donors is that you're part of something bigger. Giving through the CFC makes you part of something bigger, makes you part of a gift, a 60-year tradition. Gave nearly $90 million to charity last year, and these charities go through a very, very stringent vetting process. That Terry's laughing right now. He's like, yeah, I had to do those reviews, and they take a long time, and federal employees take it very seriously. So when you look at that list of whether it's 35, 50 local charities or 2,000 national charities in the brochure or 6,000 overall on the giving site, that these charities have gone through a real review, are vetted, and when you make a gift to them, it's a combined gift that allow them to make substantial programmatic changes that they couldn't do otherwise without the organization that the CFC provides them, and the reporting and the transparency, which is a real hallmark of the CFC right now. So think about some of those benefits when you're considering your $1, $5, or larger gift.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Mike.
Hey, Mike and James, this is Terry.
Yeah.
I've been looking at the attendees and everything, and I see a mix of charities. I see a mix of past LSCC members from when we were 3 different zones. And I guess I appreciate everybody calling in. My why kind of started, like I said, I was born in southeastern Iowa, moved to Nebraska, graduated Nebraska, left. I joined the Air Force. And so I learned from an early age, we got hand-me-downs and stuff like that. I thought that's just, the way it was. You had an older cousin that, had clothes that were still able to be worn. You got to wear them. And then if they were still in good shape, you passed them on to a younger sibling or another cousin. But my grandfather used to listen to, he had a base station he was a citizen band. He listened to CB radio, and he would listen, and his handle was called Stoveboat. And he was well known through the area down in southeastern Iowa because he was a truck driver for a brick plant. Wasn't a very prestigious job, but he would listen, and people would call him in for stranded vehicles that were within a certain, I'm not even sure if it was a certain mile. I mean, it could have been 50 miles outside the city limit. I'm pretty sure he would have drove out there. But anybody that ran out of gas, or if somebody stopped by and asked some questions and we got enough information that was over the CB, he would go fill up a couple gas cans full of gas, drive out through where they were, introduce himself, and he would fill up for gas. Sometimes, depending on the information he got, he'd actually stop by a place and pick up something for him to eat, or my grandmother might make some sandwiches or stuff to take out there for him. And I just thought that was cool. That's where I was introduced to helping others. Mm-hmm. He just did it because that's who he was. That's what he was raised the same way. Then I joined the Air Force, and that's part of how the Air Force and most military, all the military services is that total person is not only do you do your job, you're there to, serve your particular branch, but also the country. And then you're also supposed to get involved and help out others. I remember my first assignment was Guam. Fantastic assignment. But I'm an 18-year-old, 15 hours away from Nebraska by myself. And agencies like the Officer Spouse Club, the NCO Spouse Club, we get together and put together Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas dinner with a small present for the single airman that didn't have any place to go. So that just even imprinted even more that you have to do to help others. CFC came around and I was kind of like said, I looked back at some of my leave and earning statements. And at that time, when I first got married, I was just made a senior airman, which was an E3 in the Air Force. And I was making probably $275, $285 every 2 weeks. And I'm like, there's no way I can give anything that's worth helping out. And lucky enough, I had an older NCO that sat down and said, anything can help. And that's where, even before I started pushing the $1, $2, that's actually how I started participating in the CFC, was $1 a pay period. And that's what he said. He goes, it's not just your $1. He goes, it is your $1. He goes, but it's combined with everybody else, all the other federal employees, all the other active duty that are participating in this campaign. So it's not just $1 a pay period. It's going to end up being thousands of dollars a pay period. So, and I've just been lucky enough to be able to participate in different events, CFC, Esprit de Corps, the different stuff within the Air Force. I participated in Knights of Columbus. I was a member of the St. Vincent de Paul Society, which basically would meet with clients one-on-one and take a small amount of money to kind of help them pay, to keep them from going over the edge. We wish we could do so much more, but we couldn't. But that small amount of money that we donated helped them going over the edge and getting in worse situation. Plus, I think it was the fact that we were there to listen to what they were going through. So I highly encourage everybody. And then also the other example, some of the charities that are on there. I know there's a few charities that are from Western South Dakota. That's actually where I retired from the Air Force, was in Western South Dakota. I actually worked for county government out there for a few years and in a private engineering firm before I moved back down to Omaha. So I have a special tie to Western South Dakota. A lot of active duty people and active duty that have retired have a special tie to all the places that they were assigned. And that's why I encourage all charities to participate in these charity fairs and participate in the combined federal campaign, because I still donate to the youth center at Ellsworth. I still donate to the youth center at the Air Force Academy. I still donate to the youth programs over in Europe if they're in the campaign booklet. If they're not in there, I can't participate. I still I rotate and try to give to local charities for each of the area that I lived into, just to still have that connection with that community that I used to live in, and that did so much for me and my family while we lived there. Board member, if we have any board members or any campaign managers, let your employees know that yes, they can participate with the monetary donation. They can also participate with volunteering, and yes, the charities are working how to volunteer in a virtual, in a virtual way. So you can still donate your time. It just may not be physical, or it may be, you may have to schedule time and be 6 foot apart. But you can still donate if you don't want to do the money donation. And even encourage the people that don't really want to participate monetarily or with their time, important to them, and have them post that on their cubicle, their cabinet, in a break area. Now that we're doing virtual meetings, let them know to do that. And then when you start a virtual meeting, occasionally have them hold up, this is my why, or this is my cause. And the reason we say do that is because that will get them thinking and possibly get them wanting to participate in future campaigns. Yeah. As you can see, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing as a volunteer with the local federal coordinating committee as a campaign manager for my agency if I didn't truly think that we are making a difference. And we've went through some tough times from 2017 to now with government shutdowns, which is different activities. And I'm still super impressed with the federal employees that are still participating. When we had the government shutdown, and we actually had charities, they were the ones that came to us and said, we want to do something for the federal employees during the shutdown time, for the employees that have been furloughed. We somehow want to let them know, thank you, and we want to help them this time instead of them helping us. So it's, and the other thing I encourage, do not throw away those printed off campaign charities. I know we're all big in recycling. If you want to recycle a few, that's great, but at least keep 1 or 2 of them in your office all year round. because somebody's going to come up or somebody you're going to know is going to ask for assistance. And that is a great way of finding assistance for them. You can flip through there and say they run into a particular issue and they do not know where to go. You can thumb through that charity campaign booklet and find those agencies that are out there that could provide them help in their time of need. So I appreciate your time. Let me kind of ramble on. Again, the raffle's not actually going to be announced. Raffle winner won't be announced at the end of this drawing. I need everybody to email me at terry.morgan@gsa.gov with the kind of scavenger hat, which was you needed to give me one item about the presenters, what they were wearing, and then you need to give me one item what was in their background. And that includes myself, James, Mike, Coach Osborne, Meredith, and Shannon. And then email that to me. I'll take all the emails, and then you'll go in for a raffle for basically a food card. Shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that knows me because I'm all about food. You'll go in for a raffle for a gift card to a particular restaurant. Even if you're in Western South Dakota, go ahead and participate because we are going to have food cards from some national chains. We're all going to do some food cards from regional chains within Nebraska, Valentino's, Godfather's, Runza. But there'll actually be some national food cards in there so that those that are in Western Iowa or Western Nebraska can still have a chance to participate and win that particular food card. So I appreciate the time, and I'll turn it back over to Mike and James.
Great, thanks, Terry. You had me at Valentino's early when we were talking about possible gift card options. So that sounds good. So I dropped Terry's email address in the chat. If for those of you that don't have it, so I put that out there. Go ahead and you can email that information over to Terry to join the raffle. Terry brings up a really good point. I just wanted to kind of compliment and highlight what he just shared with you. There's 3 easy ways for you to get involved in the campaign. Number 1, of course, is to give. Just go to givecfc.org and click donate. And for those of you, again, that have given, thank you. And it takes less than 30 seconds to give again once you've set up an account. It's all it took me this campaign season when things opened up. And if you haven't done an account yet, it just takes a couple minutes and it's a real quick process. But consider giving because that's what makes a huge difference. Volunteer your time. That was something new that happened in 2017. So you can also donate your time to your local causes and charities as well. And you can donate your time through that givecfc.org once you set up your account, or do it on your paper pledge form. Just ask your local CFC volunteer in your office. They've got pledge forms as well. And then to me, the most important piece is like Terry said, share your story, share your why, share your cause. And that's such a great way to connect to people's hearts and communicate, human being to human being. We all have stories and we all have things that are near and dear to our heart. So share that story with your office mates. I think that's important. So, all right. So we've got a little bit of time left. I'll just kind of open things up. Type them in the chat if you could, or the Q&A box. Does anybody have any campaign questions or any questions for any of us that are still here on the line? So one question is, what are the dates of the campaign? So the campaign is active, started September 21st of this year and goes through January 15th of 2021. So we got plenty of time yet. We got a couple, 2+ months to give. So, and the campaign website, that givecfc.org website is open all the way through the 15th. So encourage you to set up your account. Great question. Any other questions? Any other comments?
Hey, James, Jamie wrote in the chat box, how can we share the story of how we help federal employees when they were furloughed. So many of our nonprofits in Western South Dakota stepped
Great.
out
Yeah.
and helped, but I don't know if all the employees know. I would say definitely consider doing, like we'd mentioned at some of our meetings, consider doing a video, and send that to James and Mike, and we can actually put that on our website, and possibly, they can talk, and we can possibly put that on the websites of other regions. There's other zones that fall under the McGuire umbrella. But yeah, I would highly encourage that. That's probably in today's, the way we're doing everything virtually, just do a real quick video, or, I mean, if you want to put together just even an email stating, the different agencies that helped during that furlough period, you probably send that to James and Mike, and then we can actually distribute that out as one of our weekly emails that go out to the different campaign managers.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Terry. We love the videos, and some people are doing things live on Facebook, and you can save that recording and share it back with Mike and I and the team. We also have a YouTube channel that we've set up because we're recording all the assets like this event today, trainings and the future events, and we're sharing those up at the our YouTube channel. I'll drop the address up in chat as well. Thanks for that, Terry. Good question, Jamie. Thank you. It's a great idea. Okay. Any other questions? All right, gang. I think it might be time for us to go get some Valentino's pizza. For those of us that are local. Matt was asking, what's Meredith's charity number? Meredith, you want to drop it in the chat again? Or
Yes.
Go ahead and repeat it out loud.
20331.
20331. Wonderful. Thank you.
Like I say, if you're out in the San Diego area, can't you go to Wahoo's Fish Tacos? And I know up in Western South Dakota, I'm pretty sure Philly Ted's is still around. You can go up to Philly Ted's and get a pretty decent cheesesteak. Sorry, Houston, I'm not familiar with the Houston area, but I'm sure you have some great restaurants out in that area.
You can tell Terry's a professional eater, and I am as well. So as my wife and I, when we travel, we always judge the cities we visit by the food. So that makes it easy. Okay, gang, I think that's going to be a wrap. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you so much for being here, Meredith, Shannon. We really appreciate you and all that you do for the CFC. And we want to thank Coach Osborne for being here as well. And Terry, thank you for hosting the event.
James and Mike, thank you. And to all the attendees, again, thank you for attending. Hopefully, if you're considering doing a virtual event, go ahead and go to our website and fill out the event form. We'll be more than happy to help you with that event. If you need guest speakers, there's lots of charities that are just chomping at the bit to want to do these virtual affairs. And if you need somebody to kind of do, the boring part, the rules or anything like that, any of the elected officers on the LFCC or any of the board members would be more than happy to give a little presentation on why we sit on the board of directors and do what we do. So hopefully